The mysterious encounter. The storm in space was like nothing the human had ever seen. He was a lone traveler, drifting in his small ship between the stars, searching for meaning, searching for answers. Dark clouds of cosmic dust twisted like angry shadows. Lightning of blue and silver cut across the black void, and his ship was thrown out of control. Warning lights screamed inside the cockpit, but he kept fighting, his hands gripping the controls with desperate strength. He did not cry out, he did not pray, he simply endured, because he was human and humans did not give up easily. Then suddenly the storm cleared. The silence was heavy, the void calm again, and in front of him appeared something that should not exist. It was not a planet, not a star, not an asteroid, it was a temple, floating in the middle of space, glowing with golden light, shaped like a crown of a forgotten empire. The human stared in shock, wondering if his mind had broken under the pressure of the storm, but the temple was real. His ship was pulled by a gentle, unseen force. Landing softly at the edge of its steps, he stepped out, his boots touching stone that felt alive. The air around him was warm, though there was no sun. Strange symbols glowed on the floor. Pulsing like a heartbeat, he walked forward. Unsure if he was dreaming or awake, the silence of the place was not empty. It was waiting, it was watching. Then she appeared, the alien goddess. Her form towered above him, yet was not heavy. She was light and shadow at once, her skin glowing like moonlight, her hair flowing like a river of stars. Her eyes were bright and deep, ancient and powerful, and yet there was sadness in them. She spoke without moving her lips, her voice echoing inside his mind. Mortal of earth, you have wandered far, and fate has brought you to me. The human froze. His breath caught in his chest. He had faced storms, hunger, loneliness, and despair, but nothing prepared him for this presence. He wanted to bow, but something inside told him to stand tall, so he straightened his back and met her gaze. She raised her hand, and golden light wrapped around him like gentle chains. You are given 3 wishes, she declared, her tone both command and gift. 3 desires of your heart, and I shall grant them without question. Her words filled the air like thunder, shaking the walls of the temple. The human felt the weight of her promise. Like holding the stars themselves in his hands, for a long moment he said nothing. Most mortals would have asked at once for power, for wealth, for eternal life, but he only stared at her, his mind racing. Why was she here? Why would a goddess give such gifts? What did she expect of him? The silence stretched, and the goddess tilted her head, a frown touching her perfect face. Speak, she said softly, but her voice carried command. What do you desire, human? His heart pounded. He thought of his lonely journeys through space, the people he left behind, the struggles of humanity as it reached for the stars. He thought of fear, of loss, of the hunger in the eyes of those who dreamed of a better tomorrow. And then he looked at her again, this being of pure power, waiting to be impressed, waiting to be worshipped, but instead he surprised her. I wish, he said slowly, his voice steady. The words hung heavy in the temple. The goddess leaned forward, her eyes narrowing, expecting the usual mortal greed. But when his first wish left his lips, her body stiffened, her breath caught, and her perfect face twisted with shock. For the first time in countless ages, the alien goddess was speechless. The temple lights dimmed as if the stones themselves were stunned, and the silence that followed his words was deeper than the void of space. To be continued. The first wish revealed, the alien goddess stood frozen, her radiant form glowing less bright than before. She had heard thousands of wishes from mortals across time. Kings begged for eternal rule, warriors demanded victory, lovers asked for beauty, and tyrants sought endless power, but this human, this fragile creature standing before her, had spoken words no one had ever dared. Her lips trembled. Her ancient voice caught in her throat. She could not believe what he had asked for. You wish for this, she whispered, the echo of her words shaking the golden chamber. Her gaze pierced into his soul, searching for trickery, but she found none. His heart was steady, his eyes were calm, and his voice carried no fear. It was not the demand of a fool, nor the cry of a desperate man. It was something deeper, something she had never expected. The goddess took a step back, the stars woven into her hair flickering like dying lights. Do you understand what you are asking, mortal? She demanded. Do you know the danger, the consequence, the weight of such a wish? The human nodded slowly, his jaw firm, his shoulders unshaken. I know, he said simply. It is not for me. It is for all of us. The temple pulsed with light, ancient symbols on the floor glowing brighter, as if they too were listening. The goddess felt something stir inside her chest, something she had locked away for centuries, doubt, curiosity, and a strange warmth. For ages she had granted wishes like a game, testing mortals, mocking them when greed consumed them. But this man, this human, was different. She raised her hand, and power filled the chamber like a storm. Golden fire swirled around the human, wrapping him in light, testing the truth of his soul. If his wish had been false, he would have been destroyed instantly. But the light did not burn him, it embraced him. It flowed through his heart and reflected back with even greater strength. The goddess gasped softly, her eyes widening. "Impossible," she whispered. "No mortal should carry such purity." The human did not answer her amazement. He stood quietly, his gaze steady, his breath calm. He had spoken his first wish, and he would not take it back. For a long moment, the goddess only stared at him. She remembered when she was young, when she too believed in hope and dreams before the universe taught her cruelty. She remembered the wars of gods, the fall of empires, the cries of mortals crushed under cosmic games, and now here was a human, standing in her temple, daring to wish for something that could challenge even her ancient heart. Finally, she spoke again, her voice trembling though she tried to hide it. "Very well, mortal. Your first wish is granted." The temple shook as her power poured out. Stars flared in distant skies and unseen forces answered her call. The wish began to shape reality itself, unseen chains breaking, invisible barriers falling. The human felt the shift, but he did not flinch. He had known what would come the moment he opened his mouth. When the storm of power faded, the goddess looked at him with new eyes. He was still small, still fragile, still only flesh and bone. Yet she could no longer see him as just a man. There was something unshakable within him, a fire she had never witnessed before. She stepped closer, her voice softer now, not commanding but questioning. "Why human?" she asked, her glowing eyes filled with both anger and wonder. "Why would you waste a gift of eternity on such a thing?" The human gave a faint smile, though his heart was heavy. "Because power means nothing if we lose who we are," he answered. "Because humanity is more than survival, more than greed, more than fear." His words echoed in the temple like thunder, each one striking her heart for the first time in countless millennia. The goddess felt small before a mortal. She turned away, hiding the shimmer in her eyes. No one had ever shaken her like this before. No one had ever forced her to question herself. And though she tried to deny it, deep inside she knew this was only the beginning. The human still had 2 wishes left, and the galaxy would never be the same again, to be continued. The goddess tests humanity. The alien goddess stood in silence, her glowing eyes fixed on the human. His first wish had shaken her more than any battle, more than any prayer from mortals in the past. She could not understand how such a fragile being could carry such weight in his heart. Her temple, once calm and eternal, now trembled as if it too was unsettled by his choice. But the goddess was not ready to accept defeat. She was eternal. She was power. She was the voice of the stars. No human, no mortal could outwit her so easily. If he thought his wish had impressed her, she would test him until his spirit broke. With a wave of her hand, the golden floor melted away into darkness. The human gasped as the temple vanished, replaced by visions of worlds torn apart, cities burning, oceans boiling, mountains falling into fire, billions of lives screaming into silence. The goddess stood beside him, her voice cold and sharp. "This is the fate you invite with your wish, human." Her words carried thunder, echoing in his chest. "You speak of hope, of meaning, but hope is weak. Meaning is fragile, and kindness is crushed by war." She stepped closer, her towering form casting shadows of despair around him. "If you had wished for power, you could stop this destruction. If you had wished for strength, you could rule and protect." Her eyes narrowed, fire burning in their depths, but instead, you asked for something foolish, something that will invite ruin. The human's heart pounded. The visions cut deep into him. He saw children crying in burning streets, soldiers fighting with hopeless courage, mothers clutching their little ones as darkness consumed them. His soul trembled, for he was still a man, still flesh and blood, still vulnerable to fear. But he clenched his fists, he lifted his chin, and he stared back at the goddess. "You show me death," he said, his voice steady though his chest ached. "You try to break me with fear. But I have seen fear before, I have lived with it. I have carried it. His voice grew louder, stronger. Humanity has always lived in the shadow of death. Yet we rise, we fight, we build, we dream. He pointed at the burning visions, his eyes shining. You think this frightens me, goddess. But this only proves why my wish was right. The goddess blinked. Her body stiffening, she had expected him to falter, to beg her for a new wish, to show weakness. Instead, he had turned her trial into his proof, his shield. She felt her chest tighten, her thoughts racing with emotions she had not known in centuries. Still, she was not ready to yield. With another gesture, the visions shifted. Now she showed him temptation. He stood in a palace of endless wealth, gold stacked like mountains, jewels brighter than stars, fleets of ships bowing to his command. The goddess leaned close, her voice soft, dangerous. All of this could be yours with only one selfish wish. You could be more than human, you could be eternal. The human stared at the treasures, at the power, at the endless throne of glory. For a moment his heart whispered of desire, of what he could do with such strength. But then he closed his eyes, letting the images fade. When he opened them again, he smiled faintly. I do not need your gold, I do not need your crown. I do not need to rule the stars, he said firmly. What I asked for is greater than all of this. The goddess's lips parted. Her breath caught. No mortal had ever turned away from her gifts before. She felt something strange inside her, something she could not control, respect and fear, and a quiet admiration she did not want to admit. The visions broke apart and the temple returned, its walls glowing brighter than before. The goddess stared at him, her hands trembling though she tried to hide it. You are unlike any mortal I have met, she whispered, but you still have 2 wishes left, and I will uncover the truth of your heart. The human did not look away, his eyes steady as steel. Test me if you must, he said calmly. But you will not break me. The goddess turned her face, hiding the storm in her eyes for the first time in ages. She did not know who was truly in control. The human had passed her test, but the greatest trial was yet to come, the second wish. The temple glowed with uneasy light, the walls alive with shifting symbols that pulsed like a heartbeat. The goddess stood tall, her face calm but her eyes storming with unspoken thoughts. The human had passed her trial. He had rejected fear. He had rejected temptation. Yet he still carried 2 wishes in his heart. She wanted to know what more he could desire, what more his strange mortal spirit could reveal. At last she spoke, her voice echoing like the wind across endless skies. Human, you have made 1 wish, and you stood against my trials without faltering. Her gaze sharpened, her presence pressing down on him like a mountain. But now you hold the second, and with it, the chance to change everything. The human did not bow, did not tremble. He only closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered his people, the long struggle of humanity reaching for the stars. He remembered loss, hunger, hope, and dreams carried by millions of souls who believed in a better tomorrow. When he opened his eyes, his decision was already made. I'm ready, he said softly, his voice steady. I speak my second wish. The goddess leaned closer, curiosity burning brighter than her pride. She expected greed, she expected selfishness. She expected him to show the weakness of his kind at last. But when the words left his mouth, the air of the temple shivered. The symbols across the walls flared with silver fire, and the goddess herself gasped. His second wish was greater, stranger, and more dangerous than the first. He did not ask for power. He did not ask for immortality. He did not even ask for safety. He wished for something that touched the very core of the universe, something that even gods feared to grant. The goddess staggered back, her hand trembling. You dare to speak such a wish, she whispered, her voice trembling with both awe and anger. Do you know what you risk, mortal? Do you know what storm you invite upon your fragile kind? But the human did not retreat. His eyes shone with quiet fire, and he answered without hesitation, Yes, I know, but I will not take it back. The temple shook violently, cracks splitting the golden floor as ancient seals awakened. The air roared with unseen voices. The cosmos itself stirred. What he had asked for was not meant for mortals. It was not meant for anyone. Yet the goddess had sworn to grant his wishes, and her oath was eternal. Her body glowed with overwhelming power, her voice thundering as she lifted her arms. You will bring ruin upon yourself, upon your people, upon the stars themselves. Golden chains of divine energy wrapped around her wrists, binding her to her promise. She screamed as power surged through her body, blazing brighter than 1,000 suns. The human stood firm even as the temple cracked and the void outside trembled. He knew what he had asked for could destroy him. Yet he did not flinch. If this was the cost of hope, if this was the price of his people's future, he would pay it without fear. The goddess fell to her knees, her voice breaking as she forced the wish into being. Light spilled into every corner of the chamber, spilling out into the stars, racing across unseen paths of the galaxy. Her eyes burned with tears of fire, not from weakness but from the unbearable weight of what she had done. When at last the storm faded, she looked at the human, her voice soft and broken. You are unlike any mortal. Your kind should not carry such strength. Yet you do. She shook her head, her hair falling like rivers of starlight. I have granted your second wish, but the balance of the universe trembles because of you. The human's chest rose and fell, his face calm though his heart thundered within. He nodded slowly, his voice quiet. Then let the universe tremble, he said, for it is time the stars remembered humanity. The goddess stared at him, speechless once more. For ages she had ruled unchallenged, her will shaping reality itself, but this human, with nothing but courage and conviction, was changing her, was changing everything. And still, he had one wish left, the final choice that could either save or break the galaxy. To be continued, to be continued. Conflict and consequence. The temple no longer felt like a safe place. Its golden walls groaned, its glowing symbols flickered like fading stars, and the air trembled with invisible storms. The second wish had torn through the threads of fate, and even the void outside the temple rippled with unease. The goddess stood tall again, her glowing eyes burning brighter. But behind that light was something different, fear. She had granted countless wishes across ages, some foolish, some selfish, some cruel. But never had she felt her own power strain against the weight of a mortal's choice. This human had not only shaken her pride, he had shaken the universe itself. And for the first time in her eternal life, she wondered if she had made a mistake. She turned toward him, her voice sharp like a blade. You do not understand, mortal. Your wishes ripple beyond your people, beyond your world. They touch the very balance of creation. She stepped closer, towering over him, her presence like a storm pressing on his chest. Gods may awaken, empires may rise in anger. Chaos may come for you, and all of it will be your doing. The human looked up at her, his jaw firm, his eyes steady. I understand, he said, his voice low but unbroken. And yet I will not take it back, I will never take it back. Her hand trembled as she reached out, lightning of gold dancing across her fingers. For a moment it looked as if she would strike him down, and his defiance before it brought ruin. But when her hand hovered inches from his face, she froze. She saw no fear in his eyes, only resolve, only the fire of humanity burning unshaken. Her breath caught and she pulled her hand back. Anger surged inside her chest. But anger was not the only thing. There was also respect and confusion and something dangerously close to admiration. But she could not allow him to continue without warning. So she raised her arms and the temple cracked open to the void. Look, human, she commanded, her voice shaking the stars. And the void filled with visions once again. Armadas of alien fleets gathering at the edges of space, weapons glowing with hunger, worlds trembling under the shadow of war, empires whispering of a rising storm, all of it a reaction, all of it born from the power she had just unleashed through his wish. Your people will suffer for this, she cried. They will be hunted, they will be feared. They will be challenged by every empire that trembles at what you asked for. Her voice broke with fury. You have doomed them. The human's heart clenched, his breath heavy. He saw the danger. He saw the blood that could be spilled. He felt the weight of guilt pressing like iron, but still he stood firm, his voice clear. If the galaxy rises against us, then we will rise higher, he declared. If they fear us, then let them. If they challenge us, then let them. Humanity will not kneel, not to gods, not to empires, not to fear. The goddess's eyes widened, her chest tight. No mortal had ever spoken to her like this. No mortal had ever dared to stand so tall before the shadow of doom. She wanted to call him reckless, foolish, blind, but deep inside she knew he was right. Every empire she had watched rise and fall had once been born in defiance. Perhaps this was humanity's moment. The temple's glow grew unstable, cracks spreading across its golden surface. The power of his second wish was still expanding, reaching places even the goddess could not see. And yet in the middle of the chaos, the human stood calm, like a small flame that refused to be blown out. You still have one wish left, the goddess said. her voice softer now, touched with unease. One final chance to undo this madness, one final chance to save yourself. She searched his face, her glowing eyes desperate to find even a hint of hesitation, but the human only met her gaze, silent, unbroken. For the first time in countless ages, the goddess felt powerless before a mortal. She had tested him with fear, with temptation, with visions of ruin, and still he stood. And though she hated to admit it, part of her wanted to see what his final wish would be. Part of her wanted to know just how far this fragile creature of flesh and blood could go. The conflict between them was no longer only power against power. It was belief against belief, soul against soul. And the consequence of his final wish would not only decide his fate. It would decide the fate of the stars, the final wish. The temple shook like a living heart, its golden walls splitting wider with every second. The power of the second wish had not yet settled. And still the air was heavy with fire and storm. The goddess stood across from the human, her radiant figure trembling though she fought to hide it. She had seen mortals rise and fall. She had watched kings burn. She had crushed empires with a glance, but never had she felt fear of what a single human might choose. Her voice was quiet now, almost pleading. You have one wish left, mortal. One last chance. One final word to shape all that follows. She stepped closer, her glowing eyes desperate and fierce. Do not throw it away. Do not curse your kind with another reckless dream. The human looked at her, his face calm though his heart thundered within. He knew the weight of what he was about to say. He knew the galaxy might never forgive him. But he also knew there was no turning back. His first wish had stunned her. His second had shaken the stars. And his third would change everything. He drew in a deep breath, his voice steady as stone. My final wish, he said slowly, each word echoing through the broken temple. The goddess stiffened, her hands curling into fists. Her chest tight with dread, she leaned forward, every fiber of her being straining to hear. She expected him to ask for immortality at last, or the throne of the stars, or the safety of his people, but his words struck her like lightning. I wish, he said, his voice rising with fire, that no god, no empire, no power in this galaxy will ever again chain humanity. No matter the cost, the goddess staggered, her breath catching in shock. Her radiant eyes widened, tears of light forming at their edges. This was not a selfish wish, this was not even survival. It was freedom, eternal and absolute, the kind that even gods could not bind. It was a wish that shattered her very laws. Chains of golden fire erupted around her arms and chest. Binding her with her own promise, the temple roared like a collapsing star, its light blazing brighter than ever before. Her body trembled as the oath of her divinity forced her to obey. Every corner of the galaxy quaked. Ancient powers stirred in their slumber, and unseen empires cried out in fear. The human's words were not only a wish, they were a weapon. They were a war declared against all who would enslave. The goddess cried out, her voice breaking, You do not understand what you have done, mortal. Her body bent as energy tore through her, shaking her form to its core. You have set your kind on a path of endless struggle. You have invited wrath from gods and monsters alike. You will be hunted. You will be hated. The human's voice rose above the storm, clear and unshaken. Then let them come, he shouted. Let every empire rise, let every god rage. Humanity will not bow, not now, not ever. His words cut through the chaos like a blade. The goddess fell to her knees, her radiant form dimming for the first time in ages. She was not only bound by her own law, she was broken by emotion. Her glowing hands trembled as she reached toward him, her voice cracking with disbelief. Why? Why would you risk everything? Why would you risk the blood of your people? The wrath of the stars for this, the human looked at her. His face softened, though his resolve did not fade. Because freedom is worth more than life itself, he answered quietly. Because without it we are nothing, because with it, we are human. The temple fell silent, the golden walls stopped trembling, and for a single breath all creation seemed to pause. The goddess lowered her head, tears of light falling onto the stone, her heart, eternal and untouchable for millennia, now cracked open by the will of a single man. She whispered, her voice fragile, Your wish is granted. A wave of power burst outward, rushing through the stars, unseen chains across the galaxy shattering into dust. Empires gasped as they felt bonds they never knew break apart. Gods trembled as their dominion weakened, and humanity, small and scattered though it was, suddenly stood unbound before the infinite sky. The human exhaled, his chest heavy but his spirit fierce. He had spoken his third wish, and it was done. The goddess looked at him through shining tears, her body trembling as if she had given more than even a divine being could bear. "You have changed the stars forever, human," she whispered, her voice breaking, "and I do not know if the galaxy will survive you." To be continued. The revelation, the temple was no longer the same. Its golden walls were cracked, its glowing symbols faded, and the air that once sang with eternal harmony now trembled with silence. The alien goddess knelt on the fractured floor, her radiant form dimmed, her long hair of starlight hanging heavy over her shoulders. She had granted the final wish, and in doing so, she had torn apart the very chains that bound the galaxy. The human stood before her, his chest rising and falling, his face pale but his spirit unbroken. He felt the weight of what he had asked. He felt the storm his words had unleashed, but there was no regret in his eyes, no hesitation, only the quiet fire of someone who believed. He had not asked for himself. He had asked for all of humanity, and the universe itself had been forced to answer. The goddess lifted her gaze, her glowing eyes filled with tears of light. For the first time in countless ages, she did not look down on a mortal. She looked up. "You have done what no god ever dared," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You have broken the laws of eternity. You have shaken the balance of creation, and yet you remain standing." She rose slowly to her feet, her towering form still magnificent, though dimmer than before. She stepped closer to him, her expression torn between awe and sorrow. "I gave you 3 wishes, mortal, thinking I would see greed or weakness or fear, but instead I have seen courage, sacrifice and fire." Her lips trembled, her voice soft. "You are no ordinary man. You are the proof of what humanity truly is." The human did not move, his eyes fixed on her glowing face. "We are only people," he said quietly. "We fall, we bleed, we struggle, but we never stop. And that is enough." The goddess closed her eyes, her body shivering as ancient memories stirred within her. She remembered when she once believed in such words, long before eternity hardened her heart. She remembered when hope was not foolish, when dreams were not fragile, when freedom was not a curse, and now, because of him, those feelings had returned. She opened her eyes again, her tears shining like stars. "Listen well, human," she said, her voice trembling with power and sorrow. "The galaxy will not forgive you for this. The empires will rise against your kind, the gods will rage, and the void itself may seek vengeance." She reached out, her hand hovering near his shoulder. "But I will not stand against you, for I have seen the truth of your spirit, and I cannot deny it." The human nodded, his jaw firm. "Then let them come," he said, his voice steady. "Humanity will face them, not with fear but with strength, and when the stars see us, they will know we are free." The goddess's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, broken and sorrowful yet filled with respect. "You have given me something I thought was long lost," she whispered. "You have given me wonder. You have given me hope, and though I am eternal, I will never forget this day." The temple began to collapse around them, golden fragments falling like dying suns. But the human stood calm, watching as the great hall that once held the goddess crumbled into dust. She raised her hand one final time, her light surrounding him, protecting him from the storm. "Go, human," she said softly, her voice echoing like a prayer. "Go and carry your fire to the stars, for no alien, no god, no empire will ever chain your people again." The light wrapped around him, and in the blink of an eye he was gone, back in his small ship, drifting once more through the endless void. The temple was gone, the goddess hidden from sight, but the weight of her words lingered in his heart. He looked out at the stars, his lips curving into a faint smile. "They will know us," he whispered. "They will all know humanity." Far away, across worlds and empires, a silent wave spread, chains broke, unseen bonds shattered. Whispers of fear and awe filled alien halls, and somewhere, hidden beyond the veil of the cosmos, the alien goddess watched, her eyes still glowing with tears. For the first time in ages, she believed again, and she whispered into the void, her voice soft but filled with conviction. "No one will ever see humans the same way again. The galaxy had changed forever, and it began with one man, one voice, and one impossible wish.